Hey, everybody, or anybody who's watching this. This is the Magazine Jukebox and Volo webinar. Today, we're talking about technology and whether or not it's hurting or helping the human experience. My name is Ben Londa. I am the president and CEO of Volo Solutions, and with me is my good friend Bronson Carroll from Magazine Jukebox. Today, we're going to be diving into the human experience, the customer experience, technology, and how it all fits together. We're going to start off with Bronston. First question we have, go ahead and share my screen here. That's us right there. The first question we have that we're going to dive into is there a difference between the human experience and customer experience? Bronston, what do you think about that?
Yeah, great question, Ben. And I'm glad that we're actually leading off with this because I think it's important to get clarity on the two as we dive more specifically into the human experience during the webinar. Uh, the human experience in regards to product or service is a design function. And so it's more of a holistic approach that has the human at the center of it. So it's a product design that is human centric. You start with the customer, human, and then you work your way back. You're designing your product around human factors such as needs, wants, pain points, efficiencies. And so the outcome is that your product has a human experience element to it. You are solving for, like we talked about, needs, wants, pain points that enhance the human experience. Some people start with the product and then build the experience around it. And that's what I would consider more of the customer experience, where the human experience design starts with the desired experience and then builds the product around it. And so some great examples of this are Fitbit trackers. And so Fitbit trackers focus on enhancing the user's well-being by providing real-time data, physical activities, sleep, overall health. And so these devices said, hey, we want to create something that allows for those that want to work out, they're able to track and monitor how they're doing. And so it gets people more engaged with their fitness goals. Another example would be Netflix. Netflix redefined the entertainment experience by offering personalized recommendations, user-friendly interfaces, and the ability to binge watch entire seasons, which we all love to do. But that really revolutionized, right? People used to go to the movie theater, but Netflix said, hey, we want to create a human experience that is able to be experienced at home. And so not only do we want to do that, but we want to personalize it. And so Netflix started with the user experience, the human experience, and they said, okay, now how do we create the product around these desired outcomes? And so different from the customer experience. So the customer experience refers to the overall perception and the interaction that a customer has with the brand company throughout the entire customer journey. So that starts when at the very first touch point. So that's the marketing, that's the branding. So that's the initial awareness and consideration stage where I'm deciding on whether I want to purchase the product. And it also goes into post-purchase support and potential loyalty to as well. And so that's the experience. So the customer experience is the environment created around the customer interacting with your product. Now, the human experience and the customer experiences can definitely intersect. For instance, MJB was designed around the human experience, but it also enhances the customer right experience. And so I think we've all had products where we maybe love the product, but the customer experience was bad. These are the ones that we love to hate because we realize that the product does enhance our human experience, but the customer service is bad, or I'm having to wait online. And so it's important that we're able to distinguish between the two. And so you can create a product that has the human experience, but you can also create a product that doesn't have the best customer right experience. And so I think that great companies we see always hold those in, balance, and that they're doing both at the same time, Ben.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the balance, and that's often pretty difficult to find. A lot of companies are either really strong at one and the other lacks, and the human and the customer experience, they are intertwined, and finding that balance is really the key. To me, the human experience is really about connecting with the individual, taking their unique needs into consideration, rather than some blanket or impersonal policy towards the customer. Like the
Mm-hmm.
customer is always right motto. I think that could even inadvertently harming your customer experience sometimes if your team's too spread thin, trying to meet some unreasonable expectations might take them away from other interactions that might be more meaningful. I think at the end of the day, humans, customers, everyone, they just want to be heard. So always leading with empathy, practice listening, caring about their concerns, whether or not you think they're valid, and you start to connect on a real human level. When we founded Volo, I thought about that a lot, and we're the fact that we are in the hospitality and service industries just as much as we're a software company, if not even more. We decided to build our client relations and mirror our customer service like the model of a luxury hotel's customer service. With the most important aspect, the one at the forefront of everything that a hotel does is not just providing a roof over a guest's head. It's about that high level of service, human interactions between guests and staff. So that's that high level guest experience that we strive to do for our clients, and they strive to do for their guests and patients. I don't think there's anything more important or crucial than that, really. In fact, one of our clients was quoted recently as saying, "If you think about being a guest at a Four Seasons, you'll have an idea of the type of service that Volo provides," and that sums up everything that's important to us.
Love that. That's really good. That's great. All right. Question for you. How do we create a great human experience through technology? So you mentioned some of that, and kind of specifically maybe go into, now that we talked about the difference between the two, human and customer experience, how do you create a great human experience through technology, specifically through technology?
It's difficult because being a B2B sort of company, we have it's kind of B2B soft C. I mean, we're selling, obviously, our clients are a business, but the users of our product are consumers and guests, and so what we provide to our clients needs to be a reflection of their brand and their ideology and everything. And when we were designing our product, we were very conscious of retaining a human element within our technology. We know that
Mhm.
technology can often isolate and silo the human connection that a standard, say, concierge or other hotel front desk staff can provide. We aren't ignoring that fact. Within our software, for example, we have some features to showcase hotel staff members by name and by photo, providing biographical information, kind of letting the guests virtually meet who's taking care of them. Providing custom guest surveys to find out exactly what the guests like about this experience, what we can potentially improve upon, ability for the staff to communicate with the guests and tend to their needs in real time. It's just been a lot of technology. It often does a really good job at separating people, and we're trying to do our best to, while we are a technology company, just kind of keep it together and give it a bit of a human touch.
Yeah. No, that's good. When I think about Magazine Jukebox, we're a digital entertainment platform for commercial spaces. No app required, and so all you have to do is scan a QR code, and you have instant access to the latest magazines and fun and addictive games and trivia. So watch out if you're doing it during your work time. But our goal was to enhance the human and customer experience while you're waiting at hospitals, car dealerships, car washes, coffee shops, right, et cetera. And we're an added amenity when staying at hotels, resorts, Airbnb, and the like. Um, but we were really birthed during the COVID season. And so I say that because, again, talking about the human experience and technology, there was a need that arose during COVID that we didn't see prior to COVID. And so that's where technology really helped, because what we saw was that waiting times increased. We saw that due to COVID, magazines were no longer available. So you saw empty magazine racks. Also, what also helped was that QR codes became extremely popular now, because people were scanning those for magazines and other things. And so out of that arose this idea of, there's still a need to have a great customer human experience at these locations. And so how do we answer that? What's the solution? And so that's where Magazine Jukebox essentially was birthed out of. And so how do we take and solve for the waiting time? How do we change perceived wait time? So by taking the hard copy and changing it into a digital magazine rack, and so now our customers have access to over 12 magazines, like I mentioned earlier, games, trivia, and so all they have to do is scan the QR code. And so it also helps with things like it says right on this slide, where what we realize is that in the waiting arena, there are benefits that happen. If we can solve for this, then there's extreme benefits when it comes from. So there are facts that say that when someone is able to take their mind off of the operation, or while they're there, then it relieves stress, and it really helps the overall right environment. Also, there's a known fact that even post COVID, that 40% of people feel like that waiting times are increasing instead of decreasing. And so Magazine Jukebox really wanted to say, hey, how do we, through technology, solve these things? How can we, and also like the prior slide, where one of the disadvantages with hard copy was is that 40% of those magazines are never thrown away. And so by us solving for this with technology, by us answering some of the human concerns that arose during the COVID season, we were able to produce this technology that also increased the customer experience too as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's a lot of really good points there. And the old QR code, it's funny. It's just when it came around, beginning of COVID, everyone thought of it as a lifesaver, and then everyone started to hate it. And now everyone's kind of realizing, well, it's probably pretty necessary, and it can certainly do a
Right.
lot of things really easily. Yeah,
Absolutely.
good
One of the
stuff.
other things too, just as you mentioned, that made me think of, we decided to go from using the apps, because most experienced things nowadays have apps required, and so there's a lot of app fatigue as well. And so that's where we saw the QR code as a opportunity to say, hey, there's no need to download a app, and that you can have access to these to this entertainment just by scanning a QR code as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah, that's a great point. And also thinking about our partnership together, the QR code is very helpful because not only can our hotel and healthcare patients and guests, they can certainly view all the magazines, play all the games for Magazine Jukebox within our iPads, but they can also scan a QR code, take it on their own mobile devices, and yeah, without any need for an app download. It's a pretty great little tool. Moving on to the next question. And this is a very interesting one. Why does technology have a bad rep? Is it good? Is it bad? Bronston, what are your takes?
Yeah, leave the hard question to me. Yeah, I think this is the elephant that's in the room, and I think a lot of it is the perception, right? And so the answer to that is yes and yes. I think tech is good, and tech can be bad depending on how you use it and what you use it for. Some of the obvious concerns that we find is privacy issues, security concerns, ethical concerns, especially now this is becoming really big with AI. There's also discussion around jobs, obviously. And so I think what's important is as we're creating the technology, and I think that's why creating technology around the human experience is so important, because you aren't just creating a product, but you're keeping the human at the center of this innovation. And so I think that that's important when we're creating technology, that it enhances the human experience instead of takes away from it. And there's different ways to do that. I think one of the things that's important is transparency, and so making sure that the customers know the intent of the product or the service, transparency on information, transparency on the algorithms, maybe. And so I think that transparency helps the perceived perceptions that technology is used for bad instead of good. Example, as you can see in this slide, one of the things that MJB has is a geofencing technology that allows that commercial space to have access to that QR code, and it's specific to that location. And so instead of, back when there was hard print magazines, people would run off with the magazines. And so very similar, Magazine Jukebox wanted to not have people run off with the QR codes, and those commercial partners are purchasing that service specifically for that location. And so in the geofencing technology, one of the things that's required is the location verification. And what we've seen is that this is one of those features that some people struggle with, because they wonder, are we trying to get information? And is this a privacy right concern? And so one of the things that we did is we wanted transparency in letting them know why we needed the geofencing location, why we needed location verification, that it had nothing to do with trying to get additional information, other than this is what was verifying that you were at that specific location in order to use that service. But again, I think that how we as the those that are creating the technology roll out the technology and provide transparency, that's important on whether the end user sees that as good or bad. And so that's a short answer to a very long discussion,
We could
really.
have a whole
What's your
other
thoughts on that?
webinar. Yeah, we could have a whole
Right.
other webinar on this, probably each of these subjects. But yeah, tech is very polarizing. It's funny, we rely on it more and more, and that's never going to change. We love it, we need it, and we use it in ways I bet we never even don't even know that we do now. But simultaneously, we have unreasonable demands from technology. We want it to always work. We get angry if an internet connection or a web page is too slow. And we forget that humans are the ones who created all the tech in the first place. And humans,
Hmm.
much like tech, they're fallible. We love technology so much, but then we also just don't trust it at all. We shop
Right.
online, do online banking, pay bills online. And then we'll hear about a data breach, but the MGM data breach comes to mind. And suddenly it's, I don't trust anything. You'll never get my info. I'll never use Volo or whatever. It's just a difficult duality, I guess, to navigate, especially in the worlds of hospitality and healthcare. As far as Volo
Absolutely.
goes, we never capture any guest information. Anything that an order placed or anything like that from a guest standpoint, messages sent back and forth from guest to staff, it just passes straight through our system. It's never stored on our servers or anything like that, and it's not tied to any person's name or any kind of contact information. And it's also one of the reasons why we strictly use Apple products. They're the best security as far as operating securities, mobile operating securities in the world. The U.S. government trusts Apple's iOS, and there's a lot of things about Android and other platforms that are a little too open and easily to either hack or to have leaks. And we we stick by Apple and really appreciate their privacy concerns as well. The other
Yeah.
thing that we do, any kind of embedded website, external site, or anything like that within our application, if the guest wants to look at their Facebook page or check their Gmail within Volo, it always clears out their login the second that they go to another page. And if they left it there and walked away every day at checkout time, that system gets cleared anyway. So there's no chance of anything getting shared or seen by the next guest.
No, that's great. And to your point, going back to, I think, the importance of addressing the elephant that's in the room. And so I think being able to communicate the steps that are taken to try to manage the privacy issues and the security right concerns. And so I think it's the job of the company to make sure that they're communicating that with their customer base.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Ben, why now? Why do you think this is important now that we're having this discussion? What has changed maybe since over the last few years, and why is this discussion on human experience so important now?
I'd like to think that this discussion is always has been, always will be important, and I think the more reliance on technology. You brought up AI earlier, which that's another webinar we could host someday. But uh, the more technology advances and everything, it's going to be equally, if not more important, to discuss the human experience and keeping humanity within it. Um, in 2020, everything spun upside down. We, as a company, at least, had to rethink a lot of things, and we had to move really quickly to adjust and pivot to the needs of our clients. I mean, suddenly all of our clients needed our technology in ways that they hadn't before, and we were trying to make everything happen for everybody with different kinds of communication. We had some clients that are skilled nursing facilities, and suddenly they were closed to the public, and so these patients could not communicate with their families. So we, instead of having our iPads, which are typically locked down to our application, we unlocked them and allowed them to have FaceTime and communicate with Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of our clients suddenly started using things like housekeeping opt-outs so that housekeeping wouldn't have to come to their rooms. Privacy requests, any kind of dining orders or item requests would be left at the door, and we had to change some things to make that happen for our clients. And then for a while, we felt pretty confident until the population decided that iPads were a little too dirty to touch. That caused some issues for us, but luckily that was resolved. But it was a scary time for a bit. I mean, at one point, all of our clients were totally closed. And then when they were ready to reopen, we had long meetings with all of them about how to best position our product as the primary communication avenue between guests and staff, and getting guests that normally were reticent to use technology like ours, getting them comfortable with the process. And that leads me to this picture we have here of this empty magazine rack. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that you bring up a good point with technology needs to be able to pivot with the times that we're in, right? And so there were needs that weren't necessarily present uh, pre-COVID, and there are needs that are now here to stay because of all of the things that came out of COVID. And so being able to pivot in real time is important, and I think that technology allows us to do that. And I think us continuing to have discussions around, we know that I think it's hard to say that technology doesn't bring about positive human experience. Magazine Jukebox and Volo are examples of products that can enhance that, but also dealing with how do we continue to have these educational, informational discussions on how do we make sure that technology has a focus on the human experience, and that it's considering all of the fears, all of the anxieties of this ever increasing use of technology. And so I think that's where both of our products kind of came out of those dynamics there.
Yeah, totally agree. Good stuff. Kind of concludes where the things we wanted to go over today. I'm sure we'll probably have some follow-ups, maybe even dive into the individual points a little bit deeper. But wanted to open it up to questions. I see we have some already. I'll start off reading from Juliet. Hey, Juliet, I remember you. It's been a long time. Juliet says, I'm in the hospitality business, and what I find is that the human interaction has been suffering in respect to the interaction of customer service as opposed to technology driven platforms. The different generations, baby boomers, etc., are more geared to human touch and contact, etc. How do we counteract that with technology and still maintain the human touch? You want to take that one?
Yeah, I think what I'm finding in life is that things fall more into the and than the or. And so I would say that it's both. I think that technology should and never will, or we need to be intentional that it never replaces human touch. And I think one of the other things that came out of COVID was new technology, but also the need for the human touch. And so, like you're saying, Juliet, is that is irreplaceable. And so I think that, and it goes back to the human right experience. If we're keeping those needs and wants at the forefront of our product, we will know that that product shouldn't be focused on replacing those basic needs that we need as human beings. And I think we saw that during the COVID season. And so even though we had technology, we also saw a increase in depression, and we saw a increase in things like that. So to your point, I think we need to continue to have a focus on the customer service dynamic of it too, which again can be different from the human right experience. But the human experience should enhance the customer right experience.
It's all about
Great
value.
question.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Meg has a question saying or asking, so if I was in a hotel using a tablet offered by Volo and am I able to read magazines, play games and trivia on the magazine Jukebox platform? Are you all connected? Yeah, absolutely. Our partnership is a great one. It enables our clients to embed Magazine Jukebox's content, their magazines, their games, trivia, all within the platform. And the guests can also scan that QR code we were talking about and take it with them if they like. And the clients can actually advertise within the magazines that the guests are reading. They can send out promotions or notifications in there. And it's turned out to be a really great partnership that our companies were really aligned on the same principles at the core, and we're doing the best we can to just help people stay engaged, stay entertained.
Mm. No, absolutely. No, it's been a great partnership, and I think it's largely due to the fact that we have very similar ideologies, where there was a focus on the human right experience, and so it was a easy synergy that we found. So we have a few more minutes, but we have some great questions coming in, and so Juliet says the different gens, baby boomers, are more
I
geared
think
to
we got
human touch.
yeah we got that
Uh,
one.
Okay, yep. So we talked about that one. She says, Meg says, how do we find, what do we need to know to stay safe? Who do we trust? Is there a trusted authority? Is Apple more trusted than other companies? What's your thoughts on that, Ben?
Well, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think that as far as Apple's security and their in the past, I mean, they've always been like this, but it's really been at the forefront of their design and their software when it comes to privacy issues. They are hands down, without a doubt, the best provider of any kind of technology like that when it comes to privacy and things like that. And that's why we use them, and I don't see us using anything else. Honestly, it's a high quality product. In addition to the security right there, and dealing in these worlds of healthcare and hospitality with I mean, it's really sensitive information that you're handling. You're handling customer, guest, healthcare info, contact information, and you don't want to screw that up.
That's right. That's right. And like we discussed earlier, I think that looking for companies that have a level of transparency in what they're, the information that they are gathering. And I think that it is a trade-off, right? And so I make a trade-off because there is certain information that is required for that product, like I was mentioning, Magazine Jukebox needs geofencing for the technology to be able to be specific to that location, but it's in the trade-off of them being able to enjoy their magazines, games, trivia. And so I think it's about being able to evaluate that and then make the decision. So we are at our time. We appreciate everyone joining. I want to read this last comment. This is from Chef Diamond. It says, "What I love about newer technology is that developers are able to create systems for those who are not tech savvy to compete in the marketplace against the other tech giants." Great point. And I think, again, this is where we look and we say technology does a lot of good. And so it's not that we hinder or we stop technology, but it's how do we keep the human experience in mind as we're building out the technology and the customer experience too as well. And so again, thank you guys for joining us. Thanks, Ben. This has been fun, and hopefully we will do another one. We're going to send out emails after this where you will have our information, contact information, and we're going to also provide a little discount, little gift from us to you guys for joining us. And so please feel free to take advantage of that. And if you have any other questions concerning the human experience, customer experience, and how it relates to technology, please send us emails as well.
Yeah, and if we can figure out how this YouTube technology works, we're also going to include a link to the video in that email as well, so you can watch it at your own leisure if you didn't get a chance to today. But thanks, Bronson, man. This has been awesome. We've been planning this for a while. I'm glad we finally got to do it, and I look forward to doing it again, and hope to hear from any and everyone who was interested in the topics.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.